Good morning, you're watching All You Need to Know on Bloomberg Quint Live. I am Jayesh Khilnani and alongside me is Agam Vakil to take us through the derivative space. But first, let's get you a check on how the global markets closed overnight. If you look at the Dow Jones, that in fact closed with a positive bias of about 0.3% as all three major US indices ended the day positive. Have a look at the European indices and those closed largely mixed. Now if you look at the Asian screen as well, the Nikkei is trading with a positive bias of about 0.4%, while the Hang Seng is in fact trading with a slight positive bias. Now if you look at the SGX Nifty, that is indicating an extremely tepid start, currently just about 1 point higher at about 10,765 for the Nifty futures. Some of the areas that traded overnight, we had Vedanta and Wipro, which closed more than 1% higher, and we had Tata Motors and Infosys, which also managed to close in the positive. As far as losers are concerned, we had ICICI Bank, Dr. Reddy's, and HDFC Bank, which are the top losers in trade. As far as oil prices are concerned, we are looking at extremely tepid cues over there as well. So WTI is trading with a positive bias, while Brent is trading with a slight negative bias. And remember that Brent is now trading very close to the $80 per barrel mark, and this is the fourth consecutive session that we have seen positive prices for oil. Now, as far as metal prices are concerned, the entire base metal pack on the London Metal Exchange closed mixed. None of the base metals, in fact, rose or declined more than 1%. So we had aluminium, lead and tin, which were the losers in trade, and we had copper, zinc and nickel, which advanced on the London Metal Exchange. However, if you look at the Chinese screen, most of these base metals in fact have started trading on a positive note, except for Shanghai Steel, which is currently trading flat. Now, gold prices, once again, we saw that yesterday they halted their 3-day losing streak, and but still trading below the 1300 mark. As far as fund flows are concerned, the FIs sold nearly 700 crores, while the domestic institutions pumped more than 200 crores worth of equity. For the month itself, the larger trend continues. FIs have been net sellers and DIs have been net buyers for the month itself. Now, the Nifty yesterday, in fact, closed negative to the tune of about 0.5%, a little bit more. But the mid-cap space and the small-cap space, in fact, outperformed that, with the mid-cap index declining just about 0.35%. And the small-cap index, in fact, managed to gain 0.25%. As far as gainers are concerned, we had the Nifty Realty Index that has reversed the trade and in fact closed 2% higher yesterday, and the Nifty FMCG Index also closed about 1.8% higher. Now the losers, we had the Nifty PSU Bank Index, which declined more than 3% in trade, and the Nifty Energy also declined about 1.7% in trade, and the Nifty Bank as well declining more than 1%. So, largely the financials contributed to the downside. The VIX index, that actually saw a surge of about 2% and is now near the 13.5 mark. As far as contribution is concerned, HUL and ITC contributed for the bulls, as did Yes Bank and TCS. What didn't do well was Reliance and the banking names like ICICI Bank and the HDFC Twins. But Agam, that said, what can we expect from the derivative space?
Well, we have seen the Nifty come off by as much as 60 points, as you just mentioned, Jayesh. What we're also looking at is unwinding in the futures and options arena. When it comes to the Nifty, in the Bank Nifty, of course, has also seen unwinding of nearly 6% in open interest. When it comes to the India Volatility Index, that has again moved up by as much as 2 percentage points at around 13.5. The Nifty put-call ratio largely remains unchanged, but what we've seen is unwinding in the 10,800 put, considering we saw those moves yesterday, and a little more writing in the 10,800 call. We also have Reliance Communications, which moves into the F&O ban. So watch out for that. We will expect restricted trade there, and a bunch of other stocks that we're watching out for. Escorts on the upside. We've seen fresh longs building in there, and among the other counters, we're looking at Asian Paints, where this one has also moved up with an addition of around 4.5% in open interest. So plenty of stocks out there to watch out for. We'll have to wait and watch as to how the benchmark indices open. But the battle for Karnataka has seen some overnight drama in the courtroom, as 3-judge bench refused to stay at the swearing-in ceremony of B.S. Yediyurappa this morning. And the court, however, has asked the BJP to produce the letter which Yediyurappa wrote to the Karnataka governor to stake his claim, informing the government. government. Arpan Chaturvedi joins us now with more on well, the updates here. Arpan, what's transpired overnight and what can you tell us about the road ahead?
Well, this was an unprecedented hearing in the Supreme Court where the Chief Justice of India last night agreed to hear the matter, and he set up a bench of three judges, Justice A.K. Sikri, Justice Ashok Bhushan, and Justice Bobde was part of this bench. The hearing started at around 2 a.m. And from the Congress side, we saw Senior Advocate Abhishek Manu Singhvi, who was arguing. And from the other side, we saw top government lawyers, including the Attorney General K.K. Venugopal. Then there was additional Solicitor General Tushar Mehta, who was present in the court. There was ASG Maninder Singh, who was present in the court. And there was also former Attorney General Mukul Rohatgi, who was representing two of the BJP MLAs who have won elections in Karnataka. Dr. Singh started his argument, and the crux of his argument was that going by the precedent laid down by the Supreme Court in the past cases, including the Goa case, where, if you remember, last year there was a case in the Supreme Court after the Goa elections where the Congress, which was the single largest party but could not form the government, had challenged the decision of the governor to allow and to invite post-poll alliance of BJP and certain other parties. And Dr. Singhvi's argument mainly was that the governor has to look as to which party can provide the most stable government. And in this case, it was the JDS and the Congress post-poll alliance. From the government side, Mr. Rohatgi again then started from the other side, and he said that it is the governor's prerogative, and the court cannot issue an injunction against a governor who is performing his constitutional duty. So the hearing again went on for around 3 hours, and right at around 5:36 in the morning, the Supreme Court passed its order where it said that it will not stay the hearing, but they have asked the letter that was written by B.S. Yediyurappa stating his claims to form the government, with the letter which was written to the governor, the court has said that that letter now needs to be produced in court, and the next date of hearing now is Friday, 10:30 a.m., when this case will again resume in the Supreme Court.
EU leaders are in Bulgaria for a summit that will include rising trade tensions, the latest Brexit developments, and the future of the Iran nuclear deal. President Trump's tariffs on steel and aluminium are due to hit the block on June the 1st, although the EU says it poses no security risk to the US and is negotiating for an exemption. The leaders also want to salvage the Iran Accord, despite America pulling out. European shares hit near 15-week highs as the prospect of a populist Italian government weighed on the euro. Italian bonds also fell while German notes gained. Leaders of the Five Star Movement and the Anti-Immigrant League are said to have agreed on 90% of a policy program. However, they are yet to say who will be Prime Minister, and one Italian newspaper reported they may rotate the post. The US Government Ethics Office says President Trump should have reported a reimbursement to his attorney Michael Cohen for a payment to porn actress Stormy Daniels in his 2017 public financial disclosure. And the Washington Post says Cohen solicited at least $1 million from Qatar in late 2016 for access to the then incoming administration. Reports say Qatar declined the offer. Malaysian police have raided the home of former Prime Minister Najib Razak as the new government reopens the investigation into billions of dollars missing from the 1MDB state investment fund. Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad says the scale of the fraud is bigger than initially thought. Malaysia is talking to Switzerland, Singapore, the US and others to recover the money diverted from 1MDB.
This money was from 1MDB, and it was laundered in America. Since there was no admission that the money is from Malaysia, there was no claim on it. Now we say the money is from 1MDB, and we appeal for it to be returned to Malaysia.
Global news 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Paul Allen. This is Bloomberg.
This has been a technique that North Korea has used through several U.S. presidential administrations, but they have not made any direct overture to the U.S. or given any clear indication, at least that's according to the president. From the U.S. side, they say they'll plan to be there and ready to talk. And if that doesn't happen, so be it. White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said that if the talks don't come through and the U.S. will continue its campaign of what it calls mass maximum pressure, economic sanctions, diplomatic isolation, and continued leaning on China to cut North Korea off. But there has been no indication either from the North Korean end that they really are pulling out, or whether this is simply a warning shot to set out their negotiating position.
Let's get your check on the commodity space as well, starting off with oil prices, which are currently trading higher for the fourth consecutive session. Now, this is on the back of the IEA, which has in fact cut its forecast for global oil demand for 2018. As far as brokerages are concerned, we have one interesting note from Morgan Stanley in which they have raised the Brent target price by $5 to about 77.5 per barrel for the fourth quarter of 2018, and the same for WTI has been raised up by $3.5 per barrel to about 71 per piece. Now, as far as base metals are concerned, we had a mixed close for the base metals, though the index closed positive. In fact, none of the base metals surged or declined more than 1% each. Copper gained for the first time in about 3 days. Aluminium, which snapped its 2-day winning streak. In fact, zinc closed higher for the second straight day, and tin also closed lower for the third day in a row. Now, if you look at the Shanghai Futures Exchange, most of these base metals are in fact trading with the positive bias, with aluminium leading the way and Shanghai steel trading absolutely flat. As far as gold prices are concerned, we saw that gold in fact snapped its 3-day losing streak, however still trades below the 1300 mark.
Okay, some of the stocks that you need to watch out for in trade today. The first stock that we want to talk about is ITC. The cigarette volume number is out according to a lot of analysts. There is a decline of almost 2.5%, so slightly better than what the street was anticipating. The next stock that you need to watch out is Divi's Lab. The US FDA did inspect the Telangana plant Unit 1, and there have been no observations. It's a clean observation, so that's positive for Divi's Lab. Apart from it, some of the numbers that came out: Manali Petro, strong set of numbers, revenues up 26%, profit up almost 300%. Same was the case as far as EBITDA is concerned, so strong operating performance from Manali Petro. The second stock that came out with strong set of numbers was JK Lakshmi Cement, 11% top line growth, 60% bottom line growth, and an improvement as far as margin is concerned from a single digit to a double digit margin that has happened. The other strong set of number is GSFC. If looking at it, revenues up almost 33%, profit was down 17% on account of an exceptional, because there was a tax credit in the base quarter last time around, but operationally strong set of numbers. EBITDA up almost 97%, and again double digit margins that came into GSFC. The other set is a weak set of numbers. Revenues were down 9%, again an exceptional coming here. That is why profits were up almost 17%, and that was other income was much higher at 10 crores this time around, but operationally weak set of numbers. 18% decline on the EBITDA, and margins coming in from 12.6% to 11.3%. Other weak set of numbers was Dishman, 15% drop on the profit, 19% gain as far as profit is concerned on account of other income of 15 crores this time around, but operationally weak set of numbers. And the final set of numbers that came out was weak was Z Media. Even though revenues were up 33%, profits was down 44%, and operationally weak set of numbers, margins becoming half of what they were last time around.
Well, Tata Steel reported good set of numbers. Operationally, it was a strong show for the company. The performance was driven by improving spreads. Indian EBITDA improved as much as 4% sequentially, and Oman business registered a 77% growth. Standalone EBITDA per ton, which is a key metric, rose as much as 15% sequentially to a number of around 15,917, which is a tad higher than what we were estimating at a number of around rupees 15,000 per ton. This is mainly on account of pricing growth. Besides that, however, we did see some dip coming in on account in the volume growth, which stood at around 3.3 million ton in this quarter as compared to 3.34 million ton in the previous quarter. This is mainly on account of the blast furnace outage that we saw in the Kalinganagar unit. Lastly, the management also maintained that Bhushan Power acquisition is expected to strengthen the balance sheet condition of the company. However, in the deleveraging efforts continued for the company, and the net debt was reduced to rupees 69,215 crore in FY18.
The Rusal was a shock to the system, and there was a period of time when the LME spiked up to 2600, 2700. But I think the dust is settling.
So we're at about 2,200 right now.
We're at 2,300.
2,300.
So I think that the 22 to 2,300 is where we are going to be for the rest of the year.
Okay.
I think China is showing remarkable discipline, though I am a bit worried whether Chinese aluminium that now cannot go to the US or is, let's say, more difficult to go to the US will come into India. So that is one big concern that through the Aluminium Association we have voiced to the government, that we need to be really vigilant that as all these countries start to take care of their industry, we don't become the dumping ground.
But we are living in a protectionist world suddenly, right? And I think, commodity has been at the core of the conversations that many of the countries have had, especially with the kind of capacities that China has built up. How much of a risk factor would you say that is for 2019?
Largely the risks are known. Let's put it that way. There's no unknown risk in that. We know that China has got capacity. But what we have seen in the last 6 months is that they seem to be very serious about the environmental issues, and they seem to be quite serious as not to aggravate trade tensions by trying to export a lot more. They are trying to work with the US, etc., to keep the trade balances at reasonable levels. So yes, there is a protectionist environment, but I think people are also practically realizing that you cannot be islands anymore. There has to be some, good amount of global trade going on. My only worry is whether in India we will be able to protect domestic industry, because the only place in the world that's growing, is a huge economy, doing very well, is India. And I want that, because of the free trade agreements we have signed, we are discussing RCEP, of which China is a part. We do not do anything that will make India become a little bit of a dumping ground.
The volume growth is about 8.5%. So 8.5% and about 5% is the pricing impact. So this 8.5% has come, Menaka, across the portfolio. So I think what I'm particularly pleased about and grateful to the consumers and also to the teams for enabling for Nestle is a secular growth across categories. It's not just one or two categories, but all categories that have contributed to growth. So the milks and nutrition categories have also had a fairly robust volume growth. The foods category has also had a strong double-digit growth. If I look at the categories of chocolates and confectionery, also some of our brands have done extremely well, upwards of 20-25% growth. And also in the coffee and beverages segment, we've had some very encouraging performance of brand Nescafe, which has also had strong double-digit growth. So overall terms, I believe that the growth has been secular. It has been volume based, in keeping with the overall simple strategy that we had put forward. Volume based, consumption based and penetration linked growth is what we were looking at, together with the platform of renovation innovation. So therefore, in the growth numbers that you are seeing, almost a fifth of the growth numbers have come out of innovation and renovation. So new products that have been put out into the market have also given their contribution.
We're expecting strong growth trajectory to continue for Bajaj Finance, which announces its earnings today. In terms of expectations, we are likely to see revenues move higher by as much as 34% at 2,257 crores. And we're also expecting profit to grow nearly 35% to around 606 crores. Key factors to watch: assets under management seen at a growth of around 35%, led by consumer lending business. Do remember the asset quality is likely to remain stable as well. In terms of key factors to watch, we are likely to see asset quality trends which will remain healthy, and especially in the LAP and two-wheeler and three-wheeler segments. We are also expecting traction in cross-selling franchises as far as Bajaj Finance goes, and of course the architecture of Bajaj Housing Finance will be another key watchable. On the whole, we're expecting a strong quarter for Bajaj Finance.
Well, let's tell you which are the three stocks that saw the maximum delivery buying and selling and could be in focus today as well. Plenty of large cap names that we have, starting off with Reliance Industries. Now that declined about 2.3% in trade and saw delivery selling of nearly 450 crores, while the delivery volume shot up 81% at nearly 46 lakh shares as compared to its 5-day average, and the total volume shot up nearly 90% at nearly 99 lakh shares as compared to its 5-day average. Second stock to watch out from the banking space would be ICICI Bank. Now that was down about 3.5% in trade yesterday and saw delivery selling of more than 350 crores. The delivery volume shot up 50% at 1.2 crore shares as compared to its 5-day average, and the total volume also surged nearly 50% at 2.6 crore shares as compared to its 5-day average. Last and final stock, not a nifty name, TVS Motor. Now that was down about 1.5% in trade yesterday and saw delivery selling of nearly 200 crores. The delivery volume shot up 250% at nearly 33 lakh shares as compared to its 5-day average, and the total volume surged about 300% at nearly 97 lakh shares as compared to its 5-day average.
Is peace even possible on the Korean Peninsula? With nuclear war as the other option, that's a pretty important question. I'm Noah Feldman, and today I'm going to use the method to try to answer it. When you think about how fast we've gone from threats of war to handshakes and even the occasional hug, you got to think that there's a moment of optimism here. The possibility that people might solve a conflict that's going on for more than 60 years makes us think that maybe we're not such bad people after all. Indeed, the basic idea that human beings can negotiate solutions to hard questions, the same way they did, for example, in Northern Ireland, depends on a belief about what humans are like. According to that belief, we're sociable creatures. We want to get along with the other if we can at all. That sociability leads us to peace, and it gives us a basically optimistic worldview about our possibilities for solving things. On the other hand, you have to remind yourself that power is a real thing too. If Kim Jong-un were to give up his nuclear weapons, he would be weakened in his ability to protect himself, and that would in turn make it harder for him to dominate his own people. Faced with the threat of giving up his power, he's very unlikely to negotiate a solution. This view also rests on a basic conception of what humans are like. Not primarily sociable, but primarily power-hungry and interested in dominating each other. If that's your worldview, you're not going to think that these talks are going to lead anywhere, because in the end, power will do its work. Are human beings capable of socializing our way into solutions to our problems, or are we basically limited by our impulse to power? Make your choice, and you'll know who you are.
But politics front and center this morning. You'll find all the updates in a live blog with regard to the battle for Karnataka. All the action from the courtroom that started at 1:45 a.m. last night. Let's move on to some other stories that you'll find on the website. Though the CBI has filed a second charge sheet against jeweler Mehul Choksi and his companies in the 14,000 crore rupee Punjab National Bank fraud case. And the Macquarie Group has said that the 3-decade bull run in the US Treasuries has ended, and they expect benchmark yields are poised to climb to 4% over the next 18 months. They've already hit 3.1% in the last session. All right, that's all you need to know going into trade today, but lots more coming up over the course of the day. Do stay tuned. Up next is Indian Open, and this is Bloomberg Quint.